How's it hanging, everybody? Today we're talking about JRPGs coming out this year, 2022. And by golly, there's a whole lot of them. We've got a lot to get through. I managed to pare down all of the different announced games for this year down to about 32 entries. It's only February, so of course we're going to have more entries later in the year. We're going to have more announced games later in the year to think about. But right now, if this is all that we get this year, this is an awful lot. This is a lot to think about, a lot to prioritize, and that's exactly what we're doing today. I'm going to look through these games, and I'm going to tell you the ones that I absolutely have to play, and then the ones that I'm going to have to say goodbye to. Over on our tiers, we have in the S tier, we have will play ASAP. Now, this is reserved for probably just a couple of games. JRPGs are long. Last year, I counted and I played 8 JRPGs, and I think only one of them was a new game. Now, this year, I'm going to try to play a lot more new games that are actually on this list, but that top tier position is reserved for only a couple of games that I will give absolute top priority to play as soon as I possibly can. Next up, we have games that I will plan to play sometime this year if I am able. Now, those are not exactly the tip-top priority, but they're, a close second. Games that I will very likely play. Next up is I'm a little bit lukewarm. Like, I'm very interested in the game, but realistically, I'm not sure if I can get to it, but hopefully I can. That's what that tier is about. And after that, we have let's wait for reviews. Now, this is kind of the ultimate, if a game comes out, it gets 10 out of 10s everywhere, everyone says you have to play it, then I guess I would give it a consideration, but otherwise, probably not. And very last is just simply moving along. I know I'm not going to be, as cool as this game looks, I'm probably not going to be playing it because there's only so much time that we have. Like I said, JRPGs are long. Last year I played games that were anywhere from 10 to 100 hours in this genre. And, that's why we have to sit down and prioritize, because not a single one of you out there will play all of the games on this list. It's just not happening. But I would be very, very interested to know what I left out on this list, because I know you have some ideas about games that are left out, and I want to hear from you. I would like this to be a nice discussion video. This is going to be a big year. These are great options. I was so surprised to just sit down and just be like, wow, none of these options that I'm looking at are ones that I can just scoff at. I would probably enjoy just about any of these. So without further ado, let's actually get started and dig into this. First up, we have a game called Edge of Eternity. And to be honest, I don't know a lot about this game, but I do know that it is a kind of bigger scale AAA type of RPG. It is on Xbox Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass and you're just looking for that next big AAA JRPG, then this is probably the one that you'll have to go with for now. There are much better JRPGs on the service, but this is one that can, tick off your brand new game check on your checklist if that's important to you. But honestly, I just don't know a ton about the game, so I'm just going to go ahead. I think we know where this one's going. It's just going to go into move along. It's kind of a meh. I mean, it doesn't seem to have reviewed terribly well, but I did think I should maybe mention it because it is day and date on Game Pass, so if that's important to you. Next up, we have Advance Wars 1 and 2. Now, Advance Wars 1 and 2 is probably arguably a JRPG. You might not actually consider it to be an RPG yourself if you're familiar with the series, but it is a turn-based strategy game. It has story dialogue. It has a lot of the things that you get with a JRPG experience. And I think that the Advance Wars series was obviously originated out of Japan, but this may be handled by a Western studio. I'm not sure though, but Advance Wars 1 and 2, I've got it pre-ordered on my Switch. I'm going to be playing it. I don't know if I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to be finishing the game, but I would not like to at least play some of it and just see how it is. If it's great, I could see myself playing all the way through both games. But the nice thing about this game is it's a game that you can kind of chip away at. You don't have to, it's mission based, so you don't have to like grind through a whole long story or anything like that. You can kind of space this one out, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I pre-ordered it. I'm going to go ahead and put it in will play this year. Now, I'm not necessarily going to beat it, but I do think that I'll at least make time to play it. Next up is Atelier Sophie II. Now, the Atelier games are very popular, and they have a very loyal following. I have never played one, but I know that I could not make this list without mentioning this game. It looks like a good Atelier game, if that's your thing. The thing that compels me about this series is that I hear that it's a very good slice of life, kind of cozy JRPG experience. And listen, I need cozy games sometimes, guys. I've been playing some tough games lately. Like, I mean, Fantasian took a year off my life, I'm pretty sure. So having a game that's just nice and floaty and breezy, and it's just fun and entertaining, and you just play through it, and you don't have a lot to worry about, that sounds really cool to me. And so that's why this game is like, it's compelling, but realistically, is it something I'm going to make time for this year? Almost certainly not, if I'm being honest. So we're just going to go ahead and tuck this one in, moving along. Okay. Now, if you're a Atelier fan, please let me know. Let me know what we're missing out on. Those of us who haven't played the game, I'm intrigued, but as of now, I just think that it's probably not something I'm going to be making time for. Next up is a game called Rise of the Third Power. Now, this is a J-inspired RPG, not actually a Japanese game, but it comes from a studio out of Akron, Ohio, here in the United States. And it is a retro pixel art game throwback to the classic JRPGs of old on like the Super Nintendo and NES and probably PlayStation. And it has that look. It has that charm, I assume. It's a game that I believe is already out, and I think it's getting good reviews. And so this is another very compelling one. But I think that when it comes to titles like this, there's another game in the list that's probably going to get priority over this one. So Rise of the Third Power, have you played it? What do you think? Is it an essential game for this year? Please let us know. For me, I think it's going to be an easy moving along, because as cool as it looks, as charming as it looks, I don't really think I'm going to be making time for this one. Next up is Elden Ring. I know where Elden Ring is going. It's going and moving along. I don't have an interest in these Soulsborne games. I mean, I know they're cool. I know people really love them, and I tried playing Sekiro, and I didn't hate it. I played through like the first like mission or two, and it was okay, but it's not something I want to spend time with. I'm sure Elden Ring is going to be good. It is made by a Japanese studio and stuff like that, along with George R.R. Martin. So, I mean, wait for reviews, I guess, but I just don't think it's one that I'm going to make time for. Next up, we have Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, this game is already out. I do think it's pronounced Arceus. I'm pretty sure. Feel free to flame me if you think I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's Arceus. And so this game is... Okay, full disclosure. I've never played a Pokemon game. I've played games. I promise you I've played JRPGs. I feel like all of these games, I'm like, never played that, never played that. But this one, I've never, in my years, never played a Pokemon game all the way through. And of course, this one looks like by far the most appealing one to start with, because, I mean, it's getting good reviews. It adds some depth to the game. I actually think the game looks like pretty okay. I mean, I know it's running on the Switch. It's a big open world game. It's got the billowing grass and stuff. By the way, designers, Switch developers, like low key, just you don't need grass in your games. Just the grass is a problem on the Switch. Just leave the grass alone. Find some other way to make foliage, because you're ruining the experience for everybody with bad performance and stuff by putting this grass in there. But whatever. Beside the point. Pokemon Legends Arceus, I hear, is an incredibly nice, relaxing RPG that you can grind away at your own pace. You can race through the story if you want, or you can spend lots of time doing all of the little side quests and things to build up your Pokedex. And it seems like a really nice one to me. And I'm definitely interested, but realistically, I'm just not sure that one's gonna make it. I will say this, for that one, I am extremely I've almost impulse purchased Pokemon Legends Arceus a number of times. I've been in the Switch eShop go ahead and let's do it, but I just can't do it. There's just too many other games I want to play more than this, so I haven't impulse bought it just yet, but I don't know, it may happen. I don't know if I can make it through the whole year without doing it, because I am very interested. But next up, let's move on to Triangle Strategy. Now, here's the thing. Triangle Strategy is made by the same studio that made Octopath Traveler. It's in their very interesting HD 2D art style, where you've got beautiful lighting, beautiful set designs in a sort of pixel-esque environment where your sprites and your assets are in pixels, but then it's also in 3D, and it looks very, very cool. If you've played Octopath Traveler, or you know that game, you know what I'm talking about. If you know about this game, you know what I'm talking about. Triangle Strategy, for me, I still haven't played Octopath Traveler, but I want to. That's a game that I'd really like to get through this year. And Triangle Strategy is a strategy RPG, and I've already got a number of strategy RPGs that I'm playing on this list. So I think that for me, Triangle Strategy is it's not quite a moving along. Like, if this game comes out and it just gets rave reviews, I think I'm gonna perk up and maybe consider it. But realistically, probably not. Let's wait for reviews. Like I said, I think Octopath is a better first choice to get through before playing Triangle Strategy, but we'll put a pin in that. We'll wait and see. Okay, next up, we've got Voice of Cards, The Forsaken Maiden. And this is the ultimate slip and fall in game for me, because this game is made by the developer behind Nier Automata, and it's a card-based game. Your entire environment that you're in is cards, and it has cool artwork. The characters are nice looking. Everything's very nice looking, but it's very simple because it's in a card style format. So the animations are very, you don't have moving sprites and things like that. So this game, for me, here's the thing. It has a beautiful, beautiful soundtrack, as did the other House of Cards game, because there was a House of Cards game that came out at the tail end of last year. I think it was fourth quarter of 2021, and now you've already got another House of Cards game, and these games I think are around 20 or 30 hours. So it's like, if you like that first game, you've already got a sequel, and it seems like the way this is working out, these games may be coming out quarterly. You may get a House of Cards game, Voice of Cards game, quarterly, which is incredible. I mean, this is like a really interesting kickstart to this series, and what kills me is that soundtrack, man. I am a sucker for a nice, sweet sounding soundtrack. This has these games have a very almost like a Scottish folk type music sound that's very ethereal and very pretty. And I really appreciate that. This is the ultimate game that I would just impulse buy and then just get totally sucked into. Even though it's not a priority for me whatsoever, I might slip and fall into it, is what I'm telling you. That said, I will say that I played the demo for the game last year, for the Voice of Cards game last year, and I wasn't loving it. I played through the demo, and I didn't feel like I had to keep going or anything like that. So the demo, not quite the best vertical slice of the game experience, in my opinion. For me, this is like a moving along, I think. I think that's a moving along. But at the same time, if I were to slip and fall in any of these games, it would probably be that one. Next up, Final Fantasy Origins Stranger of Paradise. Okay, I know there's where this one's going. This one is also going in the moving along. And there, here's what you got to admit. This game, when it came out, it was the butt of many jokes. People were doing the whole like chaos, the voice and everything. And there were the memes. And it was funny because the first footage that we saw of this game looked like absolute trash. But since then, it's gotten a lot more interesting looking. And it actually looks like it might turn out to be a pretty decent game. It is an action RPG, like very action oriented, almost Souls-like or something. But for me, I'm not interested. I don't want to play that game. Of all there's other Final Fantasy games coming out this year that I am much more interested in, and that one's going to have to go at the bottom of the list. Okay, next up, Metal Slug Tactics. Now you might be saying, hey, that's not an RPG. Who do you think you are putting all these non-RPGs in this list? But on the game's Steam page, the developers call the game an RPG. They identify it as a role-playing game. So I believe them. I think it is a role-playing game. And I do think that, Metal Slug is a classic SNK property, a classic Japanese series. I think that this game's being developed by a Western team. And so it's JRPG adjacent, I think, enough for this list. And for me, like I said before, I've already got my eyes on a couple of turn-based strategy JRPGs for this year, and this one is just not one that I think is going to make it into the list. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to give this priority over like Advance Wars 1 and 2 or even Triangle Strategy, so I think that it can only go in moving along. But, how cool is it that we're getting that game, that people are going to be able to enjoy that love the Metal Slug series? Pretty cool, and a pretty cool series to revive in 2022, I think. Okay, next up, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Well, I know where that one's going right off the bat as well. That's going to go into moving along. I told you guys, this list is largely about goodbyes. We just have to look at these cool games that we're interested in, we really want to play, but there's just not a way we can work all these games in. And for Xenoblade, I haven't played Xenoblade 1. I haven't played Xenoblade 2. So I'm new to that series. I need, if I'm going to play a Xenoblade game, I'm going to play Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive Edition for the Switch. That's the one I'm going to play. And then if I love it, guess what? I get to play Xenoblade 2. And then if I love that, that's the time to play 3. It seems like this is a series where, the first game is so good, it's been reviewed so well, there's no reason not to just like start with that game. Now with Xenoblade, we're going to have to see how the reviews are, but for me, even if the reviews are just blown or just like incredible, like 10 out of 10s, man. Now that I think about it, I mean, I think I'm going to have to bump it up one to wait for reviews, because if this game is like all 10 out of 10s and it's a very good entry point into the series, I'm not sure it will be, but if it is, then I mean, how do you say no to that? It's tough. So I don't think there's any real chance, but I'm going to have to slide it into let's wait for reviews. Next up, we have Front Mission, a remake of a classic JRPG turn-based strategy. A lot of strategy games here today. But for this one, I've made this argument before, just like Metal Slug and just like Triangle Strategy. I'm at my limit for turn-based strategy RPGs. And by the way, I don't love turn-based strategy games. They're not my favorite, but I'll make an exception here and there. And I think that, Advance Wars is going to be my exception. But Front Mission looks really cool. I know a lot of people are really stoked about it, and I'm happy for them. Just, not quite for me. Next up, we have Rune Factory 5. Now, this one is really tough because here's the thing. Again, another series I have yet to play, but Rune Factory is a series that I've really almost jumped into Rune Factory 4 last year, and I didn't because I wanted to wait for 5. And the thing that compels me about this game is it is a farming sim, like it's like a Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon, where you're in a town. You can date the villagers. You can have a slice of life look into that town. You can till your crops. You can also have a battle-focused JRPG element to the game. So unlike Harvest Moon and unlike Stardew Valley, there's a lot of good combat in this game as well. So for me, I think this game could potentially dethrone Animal Crossing New Horizons for me as like a daily driver kind of game that you just, you play it for a few minutes a day, you chip away at it. That means you can stretch the experience out. You don't have to play it all at once. I'm sure you can, but for me, Rune Factory 5, I think that's like I'm going to play it. But I don't know if I'm going to beat it. I don't know how much I'm going to play it, but I can tell you that I've pre-ordered it. So if I pre-order a game, that means I'm stuck with it. So I'm going to go ahead and say I will play it in this year. I'll test it out, see how it is, but I don't know. It's definitely not a top priority game. Okay, next up, we have Forspoken. Now, this is a AAA game from a Japanese studio, but it has like I think an English actor who's the lead role. I don't know a lot about her, and her name is escaping me, but I kind of like the idea of taking a real life in the flesh actor and putting them in a game. It's just find that kind of interesting. But Forspoken is a game that doesn't really speak to me very much. And I don't even necessarily see myself playing it if it gets great reviews. So Forspoken is just going to have to go in the moving along. It's a little unfortunate because, it would be a cool game to try out, but I just, we got to prioritize, y'all. So next up is Star Ocean, the Divine Force. Okay, so the Star Ocean series has kind of a cult following. Some people really like it. I feel like the last few Star Ocean games that have come out haven't gotten rave reviews. This game does look like it's a step in the right direction in terms of the trailer and everything. But yeah, it's another goodbye, I'm afraid. It's another moving along. Just not one I'm going to be necessarily making priority of. Okay, next up, this is one that I'm really excited about. And I really think that this could be like JRPG of the year, and that is Sea of Stars. Wow. This game is fantastic looking. It's from the creators of The Messenger. It's not a JRPG because it's developed by a Western studio, I think, but it has music from a Japanese composer who does other JRPG projects. So this is definitely the ultimate like J adjacent RPG. Like, I don't know how many of you out there are kind of opposed to playing games that are inspired by Japanese games and their look and their appearance and their design, but they're not from a Japanese studio. If you have that kind of bias, and it is a little bit of a bias, but it's okay. I have my own biases in life. But if that's your thing, then this is probably one that you could make an exception for, because this game just looks absolutely fantastic, like amazing looking pixel art. And I just can't wait to play this game. I can't believe it's coming out all the way at the end of the year. But for me, it may not be a tip-top priority, but it's definitely a game that I will play this year if at all possible. It may come out at the very end of the year, so it may mean that I play it in like very early 2023, but still, that's the slot it goes in, I believe. Okay, next up, we have two games that have come to the Switch Online service. These are simple ports. They are not remakes or remasters in any way. They have minimal quality of life improvements, and they're from retro consoles, so they're going to be a slog to get through. There's no fast forward feature on the Switch Online service, unfortunately, so these are definitely going to be a slog. But Earthbound is my number one bucket list game, period, of any genre, of any. This is the game that I have to play, and it's not that exciting. There shouldn't be a lot of fanfare because I think that Nintendo should have made this game available on the Switch in some form or fashion, back in 2017 when the Switch was new, but they didn't for whatever reason. So we're going to go ahead and slide it on in to Will Play ASAP. And really, that's as simple as it is. It's literally my number one game to play of all time right now, or not of all time, but at the moment, of all the games that I've never played, that is the one that I want to play. Okay, up next, Earthbound Beginnings, the original NES title, Mother 1, it's going to be a moving along. So this game needs quality of life improvements, but it does not have them. So Earthbound Beginnings is just a raw port, a translated port of the old Famicom game. There are ROMs that introduce quality of life improvements that have basically make it a playable experience where you're not just grinding yourself to death just to get through bosses and progress in the game and get through the difficulty spikes. There are patches out there. There's one patch in particular that makes the game approachable. So if I think if I ever play this, that would be what I do. I play that ROM patch. But right now, the Switch Online version is just that raw ported. I don't think so. But more importantly, if I love Earthbound, which I think I might, I'm trying not to hype it up too much, but if I love Earthbound, then the next game I play will likely be Mother 3, or the sequel. Earthbound is Mother 2. Mother 3, of course, is the most talked about game here on YouTube, it feels like. And it's coming out, or it's never come out in the West. It's only been in Japan, and people have been begging for a port for years. We're probably never getting it, but I still might play it on my analog pocket over there, and it could be a great time. I hope it's a great time. I hope Earthbound is a great time. 2 games that I really want to play. 2 games at the absolute tip top. Okay, next up is difficult because it's Live Alive. And to be honest, I didn't really know much about this game at all until the Nintendo Direct the other day. I think that I had come across the name. I think that I was aware of this game's existence, but this is in Japan. It seems like this game is heralded as one of the top SNES JRPG titles of all time, up there with Chrono Trigger, with Earthbound, of course, with Final Fantasy VI. This is one of those just must-play titles. And now we're getting an HD 2D remaster of the game, and it looks really cool. It actually looks like it looks a little bit like a combination of, say, Final Fantasy VI, kind of some of the design sensibilities, but in a Earthbound modern society kind of setting. So excuse me, Live Alive looks really great. I can't put it in moving along. I just can't do that. So we're gonna have to wait for reviews on Live Alive. It may be that it's a game that I just can't say no to because of the significance of the title, because the how big of a deal it is that it's coming to the West, all that good stuff. So Live Alive is one I'm gonna have my eye on. I'll put it that way. Okay, Earthlock 2. Now, Earthlock 2, I remember the first Earthlock game, and it was on the Switch, back in the early Switch days of 2017, I believe. I remember Earthlock being around, and it was one of the few, RPGs on the platform at that time. It is a J-inspired RPG. I don't think it's actually from a Japanese studio, but the original Earthlock game was had some really good things going on. Some people really liked it. It was very refreshing to have a game like that on the Switch at the time. I remember another Switch game at the time was I Am Setsuna, which I liked quite a lot, actually, but Earthlock 2 was another one in the mix there. Cool art style, a little simplistic. Earthlock 2, we really don't know anything about. For me, it's a pretty easy moving along. I don't see this being a stellar title or anything like that, so I think we're just going to have to move it on down to the bottom. Now, next up is Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster. And for this one, it is probably my, honestly, next to Earthbound, this is my number 2 game of current game, bucket list title, must play, top priority. This is a game that I have to play. So I will be playing this. It comes out later this month. I've played 2 of the other Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster games, and they were great. I didn't have nostalgia for either game. I played 1 and 4. And for both titles, they were so fun. Such a smooth playing experience, and honestly, felt like they were a little easy. I doubt the original games were that easy. I think that there's some cushioning, but I'm honestly okay with that because I just, for games like this, I kind of just want I want the historical context. I want to be able to play through the game. I'm not necessarily trying to just kill myself with difficulty and difficulty spikes and grinding and all that kind of stuff. I kind of just want to be able to, understand the game mechanics, use my resources intelligently, not do a ton of grinding, and just make my way through the game and beat it. And I think I beat Final Fantasy IV in I want to say maybe 12 hours, something like 12 to 15 hours. It was not a long game. And I missed some stuff in the game. Like there's a lot of side quests and things that I ended up not doing, but I was okay with that. It was a great game. And 6 is just, 6 has eluded me since my childhood. So I have to play Final Fantasy VI. Back in the day, I was never patient enough to actually beat the game as a kid. But now that I'm a stubborn old man, I'm finally have the patience to get through that game, and I'm so looking forward to it, man. People say this is the best Final Fantasy game, and I'm just so looking forward to Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster, top priority. And it's a game that I'm going to play as soon as I can after Earthbound. After Earthbound, that one is next. And speaking of that one is next, Chrono Cross was announced at the Direct, the Nintendo Direct last week. And Chrono Cross was rumored to be coming out, so now we're actually getting it. We know for sure. See if I can nudge this down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So Chrono Cross is coming next. Chrono Cross is coming in the month of April, I think. And I'm going to be playing it next, probably right after Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. So that's the idea anyway. I don't think I can give Chrono Cross top priority, but I think I can very, very easily put it in will play in 2022. My plan is Earthbound, Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, straight into Chrono Trigger. I don't know if it's really going to work like that because, I mean, JRPGs can be, fatiguing. You don't necessarily want to just play them back to back to back to back, but I'm in a position where these are games that I really want to play. And Chrono Cross is, here's what I remember about Chrono Cross. Chrono Cross is like, it's a sequel to Chrono Trigger, so that's the most significant thing about it. It has a different art style, different artists behind the project, and Chrono Cross was a game that people said wasn't good because they were comparing it to Chrono Trigger, and it wasn't as good as Chrono Trigger, so therefore it wasn't good at all or something. And then more recently, I've heard people come out really defending Chrono Trigger. They're like, no, that's a load of bull. Chrono Cross is actually a great game in and of itself. Is it the masterpiece that Chrono Trigger is? No, but it's great. Chrono Cross is awesome. Play it, love it. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess Chrono Cross is actually worth a look then. And so now I've got it in my mind. I really want to play Chrono Cross. But now people are coming back out of the woodwork and saying like, ugh, Chrono Cross, not a good game. Not a good game. It's awkward. They have their reasons for not liking the game, but I've heard those arguments. I respect them, and I also ignore them because I'm going to play Chrono Cross. Okay, up next, Fire Emblem Warriors, The Three Hopes. Okay, well, I'm not going to play this one because, first and foremost, Warriors games, the Musou style games, are not my thing. I played Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity all the way through, put like 70 hours into it. I had a good time. I even every so often go back and play like another like DLC mission or something like that. But ultimately, I had a good time with that game, but I still understand that the Warriors formula is just not really for me. It's not some place I'm trying to go back to all the time. That's really the big kicker for me is that I'm just not a huge Warriors fan, and Fire Emblem is not a series that I'm very loyal to. So it's going to have to go into moving along. Okay, next up, we're talking about 3 mobile games here. And I don't, mobile games aren't normally my thing, but I think there's 3 that are coming out this year that are of note for this list. Absolutely. And first of all is probably one of the most slept on titles on this entire list. And that is Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. This is a mobile-only game for some reason, as far as we know, as of now. It's mobile only, and it is a compilation of all of the stories from the Final Fantasy VII saga, I guess. So you've got, Dirge of Cerberus. You've got, I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head. There's like Advent Children was the movie, I think, and you've got of course, the original Final Fantasy VII story. And so it's telling all of these stories in one, I think, episodic kind of sequence. And that is awesome. Like, I can't believe people aren't talking about this game more often. I mean, this is like, for me, this is honestly like, I'm more excited about this than I am about, Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. This to me is just incredibly cool. And I guess I'm playing it on my iPad or something, because that's, hey, I'll take it however I can get it, I guess. Hopefully, of course, they come out to other platforms, but it's coming out on mobile first, and I just can't resist. I'm going to have to play it on mobile. So for this game, I will absolutely play that in 22 as long as it comes out, and assuming there's nothing really weird going on with the game, I'm going to be playing it. But I suspect that because of its like episodic nature, you might get one episode, it's a few hours long, you play through it, then, next month or next year sometime or something, the next episode comes out. So that's a game that could get really stretched out in a good way and give us lots of months of goodness with Final Fantasy Ever Crisis. Really stoked about that title, guys. Next up is we have a mana game, a new mana game, Seiken Densetsu game, is coming out this year, 2022, and that's called Echoes of Mana. It is a mobile game, and I mean, I hope it's a traditional controller-friendly game that's at least somewhat traditional. I know it's probably going to be a free-to-play game, probably going to have some gacha mechanics, all that kind of good stuff. But I mean, I'm really intrigued. It's a mana game, and it actually looks quite good. If you actually look at the graphics of the game, it definitely looks better than the average like mobile 2D based kind of game. So for me, Echoes of Mana, I'm just intrigued. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to have to put this in Let's Wait for Reviews. I just want to see what happens when the game comes out and we learn more about it. Like, where's my head going to be at? Next up is Octopath Traveler, Champion of the Continent. Now, this game has been in Japan for a long time. It is actually a prequel to the original, or to Octopath Traveler. I mean, this one looks very interesting too. It's got that HD 2D art style. It's kind of crazy. There's a whole other Octopath Traveler game out there that we just don't talk about because we don't have it here in the States. Again, mobile game. I'm going to go ahead and send this one to Moving Along, but it looks pretty cool. We'll see what people say about this one. Seriously doubt I'm going to make time for it, but I think it'll be a welcome addition to mobile devices this year. Next up, we have Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai, Infinity Strash. So that's a lot of subtitles going on there, but this is a Dragon Quest game based on the anime, The Adventure of Dai, which is a new anime. In the past couple years it's come out. I'm currently watching it, and I didn't even know about this game until I started kind of researching for this list. But it is an action-based JRPG in the Dragon Quest universe, and it's all about this TV show. And the TV show, by the way, is really good. It's very good. I played and finished Dragon Quest XI in 2020, and let me tell you guys, it is my favorite RPG of all time. absolutely play that game if you can. It's only 100 hours. I'm only asking for 100 of your hours, guys. But now I want more Dragon Quest. It's like we don't have enough of the actual real Dragon Quest series out there right now. So Infinity Strash, by the way, these next 3 games that I'm going to mention are not games that are absolutely confirmed for 2022, but they seem like they could be a real, like it seems really likely that this game could come out in 2022. So for me, Infinity Strash, I've seen the demo, I've seen the gameplay. I really hope it's localized, and I'm going to go ahead and say interested but not quite sure, because as cool as the game looks, there's another Dragon Quest game I have my eye on for 2022, and that is Dragon Quest X Offline. It has a Japanese release date set for this summer, and I'm really hopeful that we get our version at the exact same time, day and date, alongside that Japanese version. Or at the very least, could we at least get it, in the fall months or sometime, at the end of the year or whatever. I'm just so hopeful that we get this game here. It hasn't even exactly been confirmed to be released in English, but I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. So one thing you might not know about Dragon Quest X is it is a Japanese-only MMORPG, meaning it's only online and it is only in Japan, and let's face it, it's never coming here. And I think that this offline version of the game is the ultimate statement that, hey, we're not bringing this to any other territories. So here, enjoy this offline slice of some of the game's story in its own kind of Dragon Quest entry. So I'm totally stoked about that, because I just want to play any Dragon Quest game, but they're all stuck on the DS or the 3DS or on mobile, and they just won't bring these games to modern platforms. I mean, mobile's a modern platform, but you know what I mean? So it's like, this is like a Dragon Quest game, full-blown Dragon Quest game that we could actually get this year on modern platforms, and I am absolutely stoked for Dragon Quest X. Okay, if Dragon Quest X comes out this year, I think I've hyped myself up for it. I've talked myself into it. It gets top priority when this game comes out. It gets top priority. Like, if they stealth drop this game on the same day that Chrono Cross is released, I'm playing Dragon Quest X, y'all. That's how it's going to be. Okay, next up, we have Sports Story, which is, again, a game not fully confirmed for this year, but it is a game that is, I think, certainly very likely to come out this year. Sports Story is a sequel to Golf Story, and I loved Golf Story. I played it on the Switch. It was my very first Switch game that I played all the way through. I had a great time with it. Such a nice, relaxing game, but also not the easiest game. I mean, there's there's some difficulty to the player. I mean, it's a golf game. It's like a Mario Golf style game, but with lots and lots of RPG elements and a really funny, probably one of the funniest games I've ever played, I think, was Golf Story. So of course, now that they're expanding the sports into other sports, I'm really intrigued. Sports Story could be a sleeper game of the year type of thing when it comes to RPGs. Again, need to preface, it's not a JRPG, it's a Japanese inspired RPG, but it's a really, really good looking one. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that into interested but not sure. I mean, I would definitely say it's last year was a slower year for JRPGs. If that game came out last year, it would be a lock. I would play it immediately, but this year, it's a little more complicated, so I think I'm going to go ahead and put that in interested but not sure. Next up, we have Monster Hunter Rise, and I put this here because, of course, this is a last year game, but it released on Steam this year. So I own the game for Steam, and it's not very different from the Switch version, but I never played the Switch version. And this might be a great game, like an ideal game to play on the Steam Deck. But I mean, I own the game, so I'm currently, playing it a little bit and chipping away at it. Man, I got a lot in that will play in 2022, don't I? Am I really going to play all those games? Well, I mean, so basically 3 of those games I'm going to try playing, right? But I'm not sure that I'm going to keep going. And that's one of those, to be quite honest with you. Okay, next up, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is coming to the Nintendo Switch. It's a really cool looking game. Now, the weird thing about that is when you watch trailers and stuff, 90% or more of the trailers are story-based dialogue sequences. They're not the actual gameplay. So the gameplay of the game looks a lot like, SimCity tactical RPG on steroids. I don't know how to describe it. It's like SimCity Tactics or something. It has a look about it that it looks cool, but it doesn't really scream to you like this is a game I must play. But 13 Sentinels originally came out 2020 on the PS4, and many people said that this is one of the coolest like Japanese games of the year, one of the coolest JRPGs of the year. So I mean, I'm not going to play this game. I mean, I just have to be honest. It's not a game that I'm going to make time for. So we know where it's going. It's going and moving along. So lastly, I think this is a significant one. Another Eden, A Cat Beyond Space and Time. That's what it's called, right? I can't see it, but it's another Eden. It's currently a game that is on mobile and it's on Steam. It is free to play. It has lots of updates and things like that. I think that it's very fair with the way that, occasionally you maybe have to contribute a small amount of money to make a small upgrade or something like that, but it's not vicious with its gotcha mechanics and things like that. So that's kind of nice to know of. I think that the game does not look good. I tried this game just for a few minutes on Steam, but now it's coming to Nintendo Switch. So I think that will be probably the most profitable place where the game will exist, even more so than mobile. And mobile is a massive market, but I honestly think that, when you think about Switch fans, Switch players, and then you think about this game, by the way, it has a great soundtrack. It's another one of those games. It's just got a beautiful soundtrack. And it also has story writers, I think, from the original, from Chrono Trigger. So there's a lot of things that are interesting about Another Eden. But am I going to play it? I think about, it could end up being the ultimate like free-to-play Switch game. But even so, I'm not particularly interested in the ultimate free-to-play Switch game. Not really something that's on my radar. But I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm just going to go ahead and put it in moving along, So that's what it looks like for me, guys. At the very, very top, I have to play Earthbound. I have to play Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster. By the way, don't sleep on those Pixel Remasters. If you have a PC, I recommend that you play them, or if you want to wait for them on Switch or something like that. We know they'll be coming eventually. I mean, it's not hard confirmed, but they would be crazy not to put out like a collection of those on the Switch for $60 or something, or even, maybe even more than 60. Maybe you release 1 through 3 on a cartridge, and then 4 through 6 on a cartridge. I'm not trying to give Square Enix any ideas. I think 1 cartridge would be solid for all of these. Yeah, so there's those. And then if Dragon Quest X comes out this year on the Switch in the West in English, I gotta play it first thing. I have to play it, absolutely. And then everything else, I have some games that I want to play this year. We'll see how that works out. And then everything below that, if we're being honest, it's probably not going to happen. But at the same time, this is how I'm thinking about things, how things actually play out throughout the year, and what other games come out to kind of like throw a wrench. And I'm sure there will be those wrenches. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? There's going to be games that come out that we're not expecting. There's going to be games that get shadow dropped like Earthbound did the other week. There's a lot going on this year, and there's going to be even more. Guys, we're eating good this year. If you're a JRPG fan, you got it good, and so do I. And I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for checking me out, guys. By the way, in order to make this list here, I had to make a Twitter, because for some reason, when you make a list on TierMaker.com, you have to have a Twitter these days. So I went ahead and I made a Twitter for this channel. So check me out on @Pestulon Gaming. It's spelled just like this channel with gaming at the end. And then you can link up with me. You can DM me. My DMs are wide open. My quote quality filter is turned off because I feel like a lot of smaller Twitter accounts aren't even visible to larger accounts in the inbox, because Twitter by default just basically mutes you if you have like a few followers. By the way, right now I have literally 0 followers, so you can change that by going and checking me out on Twitter. I'll try posting some fun stuff on there every now and then. But anyway, guys, thanks for checking me out. Take it easy.